So, before we get started, I do have a complaint. Why aren't enough people watching this show? I mean, I'm more than accustomed to the things I like not being the most popular things in the world, but those are usually these fancy, dour, experimental art house projects. They're not shows like this, which by all metrics should be quite popular. It's a show that takes place in this beautifully rendered high fantasy world with heavy Zelda influences, which I do appreciate, especially in the Third Temple. And it's a show about friendship and betrayal and forgiveness. Has three really fascinating human characters in Anne, Marcy, and Sasha. Why is this show not the biggest thing in animation right now? It's such a shame because the show is getting genuinely great. I will admit After the Rain was a little bit of a disappointment. I think we can all admit that now. But everything from the first temple onward has just been utterly fantastic. It's the strongest stretch of episodes in this show, and I really can't wait to see what they do going forward. I couldn't be more excited as we head into our Season 2 finale, True Colors. The show's been on such a hot streak, and that continues especially in the Third Temple, because we have Anne, Marcy, and Sasha finally reuniting. And there's beauty in that and excitement. It's a wonderful moment, but there's also trepidation and anxiety. Because Anne doesn't entirely trust Sasha after everything that Sasha has done to her, and perhaps this distrust is justified, as Sasha is planning to betray her, it seems like, and just use her as an opportunity to get into Newtopia. And more heartbreakingly, it seems like Marcy is going to betray her as well, and that one Anne will not see coming. My guess is that we are going to get a little bit of joy in next week's episodes, which seem lighter, before we head into True Colors, and that hope turns into disappointment and loss. I suppose I should say a little bit about the other episode we have this week, that being Bessie and Michelangelo, which was good. It was very good. It's a bit of a slower episode, but it's nice to see Anne get some new armor. She's been needing it for a while, and the breastplate she finally wears looks very nice. It's still a bit of a shame that she's still stuck with that filthy sock, which she refuses to change. But I don't know, there is something quite poignant to her attitude about not really wanting to change, because she's finally where she wants to be. When she looks at herself in the mirror, she likes the person she sees. And the show implies this is not something that was normal for her back home. She's not benefited from Amphibia as obviously as Sasha and Marcy have, but the place has still been good to her, and she's still really grown and changed as a person, and it's nice to see that acknowledged. As to Bessie and Michelangelo themselves, they were good. They were very good. Not great, but I quite enjoyed this. D. Bradley Baker is a master. I would listen to that man do animal voices all day long. And I did like the bonding between the two of them. It's a nice little moment for our non-human characters, and I appreciated that. But the Third Temple is really the episode that's captured my attention, and I assume that's true for a lot of y'all. We have a flashback here to Anne, Marcy, and Sasha's childhood. We see Anne and Marcy being bullied off the swings, and who swoops in to save them? Or at least tries to? Sasha. She calls Anne and Marcy kids, as in, stay away from those kids, which, yes, that's a very Sasha thing to do. Calling them kids even though they're all the same age, even though they're all extremely little. Sasha's precociousness does not entirely pay off. She ends up making a fool of herself, but she's persistent. She's brave and daring. She shows that she really does care about Anne and Marcy, and Anne and Marcy appreciate that. They invite her to come onto the swings with them, and Sasha is genuinely surprised by this. It's possible that no one has ever really been nice to her before. It's probable that she's never had a real friend before this point. She didn't think this would happen. She was just playing the hero. But it ends up making her friends that she keeps her entire life, up to the point when they arrive in Utopia and she loses her friends and her friendship with Anne is broken. Not irrevocably, but very seriously, and Sasha genuinely does want to repair this friendship. We see how much this friendship really means to Sasha. Whatever else her intentions are, I think her desire to repair these bonds with Marcy, and especially with Anne, are sincere. When they ask her if she wants to come onto the swings with them, she says, "I'd like that." A line that is echoed right at the end of the episode when Sasha says the exact same thing when Anne asks her if they should try and start over with their friendship. It's important to keep this in mind as we think about the last scene of the episode, wherein Grime and Sasha talk alone, ostensibly revealing that Sasha's change of heart was really just deceitfulness and manipulation, and that she's just trying to get them on her side so that she and Grime can infiltrate Utopia. Now, I don't doubt this is what Grime thinks is going to happen. Sasha is a little more complicated. It's possible that she could be playing Grime just like she's playing Anne and Marcy. She's probably more likely to be playing Grime, at least to an extent. We see her last look of anxiety and doubt about her own actions, and about the idea that she is going to betray Anne. Sasha has grown a lot. She's not this bullheaded person that she was back in Season 1. She has really started asking herself these hard questions about whether she actually is a good friend, about whether she's been there for Anne and Marcy. She likes to think of herself as a good friend. She likes to think of herself as someone who is there for her friends, who cares for her friends, who will take care of her friends. And as we see, this has always been the case back to when they met when they were very, very little. So I don't think Sasha is being entirely insincere to Marcy, and especially to Anne in this episode. It is true that you can perhaps detect a little bit of insincerity about how she's just completely taking all the blame on herself and acting like there's no ill will between her and Anne. That did seem a little too easy, even before the reveal at the end of the episode. But, on the other hand, there are parts of Sasha's behavior in this episode that seem very sincere. Like when she admits that she was not the best friend to Anne, that she was controlling, and that she needs to try and be a better friend. That struck me as incredibly sincere coming from Sasha. And also her behavior toward Anne in terms of being angry that Anne was not trusting her. That strikes me as very sincere too. That anger and bitterness and desire to be accepted all strike me as very real. Now, none of that means she absolutely won't betray Anne, but it's certainly not as black and white as Grime thinks it is. There is a big part of Sasha that is being sincere, and we as the fans should not overlook that. Now, I know some people might think it's strange that Anne forgives her so easily, but I don't think that's very strange at all. I think it's very consistent with, number one, who Anne is as a character. She does tend to be forgiving. And number two, it feels right with what we know about the friendship between Anne and Sasha. I've seen a lot of people just reduce Sasha to this one-dimensional caricature of this toxic, unhealthy friend who does not actually care about you and just wants to manipulate you. Now, Sasha was a bad friend to Anne back home and in Amphibia. She admits that. But she was also there for Anne. She was brave and unyielding and very committed. They were friends for a reason, is what I'm saying. It's not like Sasha manipulated her into being friends with her. Anne genuinely likes Sasha and wants their friendship to be strong. It's basically what I've been saying about Sasha since my first Sasha video, back before the hiatus ended. Anne says a lot of those same things. She talks about Sasha's positive qualities, and we shouldn't overlook those, even as we rightly criticize her for her more manipulative tendencies. At the end of the episode, they almost go home with the music box, but Marcy stops them. And Marcy is acting very suspicious in this episode. If it weren't for Marcy, I think they would have been able to go home here. Sasha, despite her commitments to Grime and his plans, I think would have prioritized going home with Anne. This isn't to say Sasha is a good person or that she's entirely trustworthy. It's just to say that we've seen her through these past 2 seasons, and she has never given any indication that she is very attracted to power and fame in Amphibia to the extent that it overshadows her desire to return home to Earth with her friends. Marcy, however, has given indications of such, and we really need to look out for that. I've been back and forth on the whole Marcy betrayal hypothesis. There were times when I thought it was overblown, and there were times when I thought it was right on. This episode, I think, finally confirms that, no, everyone who's been saying Marcy is going to betray Anne was not crazy. She probably is. And Anne is going to be very hurt by this. I also wonder if it was Marcy's idea, after all, to have Anne steal the music box. I always assumed that Sasha was the one who came up with the plans for this trio, but when they interact, Sasha does not seem surprised that Marcy is the one with the plan, so maybe that is what their friendship was like back home. Marcy, despite being oblivious, was the one to instigate all these plans. And in that case, it would not be surprising at all if she was the one who decided to take the music box. Perhaps she did know its properties. She's very scholarly. Perhaps she got them all stuck in Amphibia purposefully. But even if you don't want to go that far and condemn Marcy that much, she's really sketchy here. There are multiple different ways to read Sasha's actions in this episode. I think that Sasha is mostly being sincere, but if you want to believe that she's just lying through her teeth the entire time, you can read it that way, although I think that's a less compelling way to read it. There are no 2 ways to read Marcy's intentions here, though. They are presented with an opportunity to use the music box to go home, and Marcy stops them. Why? It's because she does not want to go home. It's really funny to see Marcy use the excuse of, oh, we need to be cautious about this. We need to go take it to King Andreas and get him to help us. I really hope you find that as funny as I do. Marcy is the least cautious person in this entire show. She is the one who charges right into situations. She is the one who gets so invested in solving the puzzles of the First Temple that she doesn't notice what it's doing to Anne and the Planters. She is the one who is more than willing to practice the dark arts with Maddie. She is the one who is willing to completely transform the town of Wardwood just to get its citizens to like her. This is not a cautious person. So when she says, oh, we should take it back to King Andrea so we can be careful with this, we should not believe her. Even if we did not know about the king's proposition to Marcy, it should be pretty clear that Marcy is not being honest. How complicit Marcy is in King Andrias's plots remains to be seen. I don't think she knows about the giant bug creature Andrias is communicating with. Andrias, I believe, is tricking her to some extent, but Marcy is complicit. She has a chance to get them all back home to safety, and she decides that they shouldn't. We should think about that a lot in these next 2 weeks, between now and True Colors. After watching this, I can't help but think that all the hypotheses about her wanting to stay in Amphibia forever are true. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Amphibia. It's really becoming a good show. I'm really enjoying these last few episodes. And I can't wait to see what Anne and Marcy and Sasha are all planning, especially Sasha and Marcy. It's going to be a wild ride. And I'm glad to have y'all with me as we go on this ride. So, thank you all for watching again. Tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. Adios, comrades.